Good morning and a very warm welcome to this Explain Pain in the Clinic. My name is Joanna Taylor and I am Director of NOI in Europe, and I'm joined this morning by my very good friend and Principal NOI teacher, Tim Beames. Good morning, Tim.
Morning.
So Tim's been a NOI teacher for over 15 years. He's taught hundreds of Explain Pain courses to thousands of clinicians all over the world. He's an active clinician himself, specialising in complex and persistent pain. And he is also founder of an organisation called Le Pub Scientifique, which is an online platform for clinicians to learn about pain research and treatment directly from the researchers and the pain specialists. So if you want to go in and check that out, please do. They have a fantastic free podcast with loads of great people being interviewed. Tim, would you mind just sticking the link for that in the chat? Just so people can click straight through. Thank you very much. Tim's also co-author of the GMI Handbook with David Butler and Lorimer Mosley. So these sessions are all about exploring how to practically use Explain Pain in the clinic. Some of you will have already done an Explain Pain course, and these sessions are designed to both reinforce what you've already learned and to extend what you have learned on the course. And for some people, this may be an introduction to NOI and to what we do. So welcome if there's anybody new joining, either live or on catch up. Thank you for coming in. Just a couple of things to mention. We'll be talking for about 20-25 minutes. If you've got any questions, please pop them in the Q&A. We'll get to as many of them as we can. Sometimes we get a lot, sometimes we don't get so many, but we'll just see how we go. We just sort of play it by ear. If you want to watch the recording of this session, the link to it will be emailed out to you tomorrow, or you can access it in the clinical discussion group. So some of you will be in the clinical discussion group already. Some of you may not be. So if you're not already in there, I highly recommend you join. It's a place where you can ask questions, where there's lots of NOI teachers. David Bolton, who is on the call today, is a clinical expert and he's a moderator in the group, and he's always on hand to answer questions, and he's always posting content. Tim is also in there, and also David Butler has recently joined, which we're really excited about because he's also posting content in there every couple of weeks, which is really great. So without further ado, today we are going to be talking about encouraging, or to encourage or not to encourage painful activity. When is it okay for activity to be painful, and when should we advise against it? So Tim, I know you've prepped for this, but we didn't actually do a run through. So we just normally say, Tim, would you like to kick us off?
Yes, yeah, thanks. And hey, great to see so many familiar faces or familiar names. So thanks so much for your support. Yeah, well, I did prep, and I pulled out a few things, and I pulled out, like, well, first of all, we were really careful with the wording, weren't we? So do you remember we coming up with the title, and you wanted to write exercise in, didn't you? And I was like, yeah. No, physical. No. Or activity. Probably. So we'll talk about why that is in a second. And the other careful word was encourage, and I know I've been thinking about that because it's in my mind, and the position I'm in as well is that instead of like making someone or forcing someone or making them feel like you're forcing them to do something, I would say it's, and particularly this fits Explain Pain, doesn't it, is that it's a collaborative approach. So you're doing a sense making of whether or not physical activity will be helpful, harmful, or at least perceived as harmful perhaps, or helpful, whether or not it has value for that person and meaning. So there's a whole sort of I would say there's an importance within that framework that we shouldn't miss like before jumping into whether or not something should be painful, is what our role might be. So so that's the first thing to say. And then the second thing, which is not going to surprise you, Joe, is I'm going to say it depends. And it's like it depends on so many things, not just what we've just been talking about regarding let's say someone's expectations and the value they hold and what have you regarding physical activity, but it depends on the presentation of how they are at this moment in time, and that changes. So what it should look like, what activity should look like, and whether or not it should be painful at one time point isn't necessarily what we would expect at another time point as well. And so if we were sort of very, very broad about this, there might be a time and a place where we need to be more respectful, and there might be a time and a place where we want to challenge a bit more. So yeah, that's like very broad. I mean, and I know this is being really, really broad about things. And then if we were to just go down the expectation route, I mean, Joe, you've injured yourself, haven't you? If you twist your ankle, you test it out, don't you? You try things out on it as it's healing, and you sort of learn. We intuitively do these sorts of things when we're recovering from an injury, like we try stuff out. And I would say, I mean, isn't that the easiest job in the world? If someone who is in a job where all you're doing is you're giving someone encouragement to try out what is a normal intuitive process, I think brilliant. Great, here we go. Let's go for it. Let's try this out. So if you sprain your ankle, if you're recovering from surgery or whatever it might be, you might need a little more guidance and support through a process. But I think some pain in that at that time, I think, is inevitable. Is that the right word? It is just a part of that healing process. In fact, it not being painful might be more a sign of things not being great. I mean,
I've got so many questions, Tim. I've got so many questions.
I was gonna say, because Morton Ho, who's a friend of ours, sent me a paper the other day, and it's a paper by a guy called Jeff Mogul, who some of you might have heard of. He's very famous researcher. Specifically, he's interested in genetic influences in pain, and done some cool stuff. But the paper that he sent through, Jeff's title of his paper, like, is a very, very long title ordinarily, but his title for his own paper is "Inflammation is Good." And so if we just come back to that normal recovery process, you've injured yourself, you've had surgery, maybe you've bit your lip or your tongue when you've been eating a juicy steak, whatever it is, the good process of recovery your body is going to go through includes inflammation. That means that a bit of movement will be sore, uncomfortable, painful, and that's great.
Okay.
Without it, not so good. Sorry.
Okay. No, don't. No, I'm just going to do a little summary of what I've heard here so far. So, what you're saying is that it completely depends on the individual in front of you, what they've come to you with, and as a clinician, you need to sort of take a view on that in how you support that person going forward. And I also heard there a lot about the importance of your role as a clinician in being the encourager and the supporter of that person. Why are you laughing?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
I mean, it sounds so easy, doesn't it? Like, what an easy job.
Well, That's what I mean. I'm just coming now. I'm sort of zooming. I'm going to start zooming back in a little bit here, Tim, because that's the zoom out level. So you're the encourager and the supporter of the person. The person should be encouraged to try things and to test the water with activity, with whatever their injury or whatever it is.
Yeah,
Okay, so when?
and let's put a caveat there, which would be with a sense of safety that doing some movement is not going to harm you. This is great, yeah, absolutely encourager. Obviously, then there are different scenarios as well, aren't there? Because and typical of the people that I would see is that they have really unpredictable symptoms. The presentation that they come with often includes like these huge peaks and troughs. Maybe not so much troughs as well, but lots of peaks. So flare-ups, as I would call that, are a really significant part of many people's presentations. And it can be quite difficult to understand whether there is a relationship with activity and pain, or with an activity and with that flare up, specifically, in the initial part of finding out, figuring out together what, that person and how they are over time. So if I was to spend a little bit of time on the flare-ups, I would be thinking about activity from a cost-benefit analysis. So I would be thinking about how someone is over a period of time, not like in that moment. Are they able to do activity? Is it painful? Isn't it painful? I would be thinking, how is this person over a period of time? And should activity be, or should we consider how activity influences that person over a period of time? So something I talk about with my patients quite a lot are widening the gaze. So you're seeing my hands. This is exactly what I do.
Yeah.
We've been focusing in, and actually let's come out and let's see how things are over a period of time. Because to understand the relationship of activity to whatever the symptoms are, be it pain, fatigue, whatever else, you do need to come out a lot further sometimes.
Yeah. I can see. I'm getting that impression about lots of what you're talking about, that you do need to sort of take a high level view of the person, the situation, and the treatment that you're going to be working through together.
Yeah.
Just we've got a couple of things coming in the chats here. So I just want, before we look at those questions, I was just going to say to you, or maybe no, I'll save my question. I'll write it down. Because I think we should probably address. We've got a comment here from Gordon Linscott, and I think, Gordon, actually you've maybe just sent it to the me and Tim, so maybe the rest of the chat can't see it, but I'll read it out. So Gordon says, so far so good, but there is little evidence that most back pain is caused by an injury, and therefore, unlike sprained ankle, back pain may not have a natural history of recovery.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you, Gordon. Yeah, so we started simple, didn't we? And then we want to create complexity within this. Yeah, absolutely. And that's like coming back to that cost benefit analysis as well. That's kind of more big picture rather than focusing down on causation as such. But what does how do they want to live their life? Like, what gives them meaning, richness, whatever it might be. If they are in these huge peaks and troughs with flare-ups, then perhaps life doesn't feel very rich, and it doesn't give them much at the moment, and actually is quite limited as well. So then recognizing how activity might look for that person will inevitably be influenced by, in that case, the cost to them. Like, if I do activity then like this, then I'm going to be in bed for 2 days. It doesn't sound like a great cost benefit analysis. But if I do activity, I'm a bit sore, but actually fairly soon afterwards, or having a bath afterwards, actually things settle down. I feel okay. Or I had this lady yesterday, she was saying actually sitting in the saddle to ride my horse, yes, irritated things, but after a while, I could sit with it, I could be with it, and actually, that if once I've come through that process, then things ease off.
Mm.
So,
How,
but that isn't going to be an immediate thing. This is something that between the two of you, you're trying to figure out together.
yeah, which actually just going to prompt my question there. I would like to just ask this: how much flex do you give your patients to do their own experimenting, Tim, and how sort of carefully are you monitoring what they're doing?
Massive flexibility.
Right.
Like between the two of us, I think experiment or explore are the like two of the sort of buzzwords I might use with my patients to begin with. And I think we've talked about this before, haven't we? The idea of trial and error, I actually really dislike, because I don't think someone's erroring, they're not doing something wrong. They're creating a learning opportunity. So you're trying
Yeah.
things out, you're learning from those attempts, that exploration, that experimentation, that then change the way that you might try things subsequently as well. So yeah, that's really is a key part of a recovery process. And coming back to that cost benefit analysis and understanding that and understanding patterns and taking a wider gaze, actually that's hard work.
Yeah.
That takes some time. Yeah.
Yeah. And it takes some processing as well, doesn't it, to sort of pull in all those different threads
Yeah.
to build that clear picture.
Yeah.
So
Can,
is there sorry, Tim, sorry, go on.
I was gonna. Well, we've only linked two things so far, haven't we? We've got about four others that I wanted to link.
Oh, all right, okay. But crack on.
Yeah, well, like perhaps a part of what we've just been touching on there is whether or not pain is avoidable, because some people want to avoid pain at all costs. So that's not possible for some people, particularly if they want to engage back into their lives. So sometimes you see people where life has become so limited. It's like it's shrunk down to the tiny proportions that life no longer feels like living a life, a valued and meaningful life. So
Mm,
so being under being able to understand where, and this is I think the careful wording of activity comes in, is can we find ways of creating opportunities, possibilities to act in your world. I'm being very philosophical here, I understand, but can we create some opportunities and possibilities to do things that make you feel like you, give you a bit of richness,
yeah.
and it might need to be with respect to pain, and I use respect a lot with my patients as well, because I think pain can tell us a lot. So instead of pushing through it, ignoring it, getting on despite, like, let's respect it, listen
Some
to
of
it.
that language is really key, isn't it, Tim? So you're introducing words there like respect of the pain rather than being frightened of it. And in fact, that ties in really well to something that Sharon's just put in the comments there, which is confidence to explore can be an issue with some persistent pain patients. Have you got any comments on that?
Low hanging fruits.
Yeah.
Low hanging fruit, Sharon. That's what I talk about a lot with my patients. Successes, rewards, ease, which is about those possibilities and opportunities. So yeah, it fits perfectly in with that. I'm all like specifically right at the beginning. I am figuring out with them together. We're figuring out
Mm.
all the possible opportunities we can do something that makes me feel good, like I've achieved, like something, I'm reaching somewhere. So that ultimately I think also feed into things like your confidence as well.
Mm. Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Tim. That all
I was trying to
fitted very
figure
well,
out
didn't
what
it?
the opposite of low hanging fruits was earlier, but I still haven't think out of reach fruits. Something
Things
to
that you need a ladder for.
yeah, like let's not do that, low hanging fruits, let's succeed, many different successes in the day, let's start building confidence, and confidence isn't just confidence in actions, it's confidence in your knowledge as well, isn't it, going forward.
Mm.
And then you always have that knowledge, you can take it with you wherever you are, you can tap into that knowledge.
Just a very quick question, just before you move on to your final point. Is there a point where is there some, do you advise your patients about, okay, about a threshold, if it goes beyond this, don't push beyond that? Do you know what I mean? When should you be telling people to stop?
Yeah, I mean that comes with the respect, doesn't it, a bit? But timing is a big thing here, isn't it? And again, come back to the cost benefit analysis is it depends on that person at that time and place how much they are willing to, if you want, suffer, whether or
Yeah.
not that's the right word, isn't it? For the opportunity to have this in their life again, or to do this, to engage with that, to try this out. So yeah, that is very individual, and those discussions are great to have with our patients. Yeah.
Have you ever
Well,
had anybody where you felt like they were just going to push it too far?
all the time. Yeah. I mean, that's a huge part. A proportion of people will just get on regardless, ignore, and they are they're the times when we need to figure a way out to get them to see, recognize, reflect on the way that they are acting at the moment, and is that helpful going forward? Are you going to get where you want to get if we're carrying on doing this? So there are other groups, and it might be worth dropping into this, is that there are times when pain is either inevitable or needed. And I think they're two different things. So at a cellular level, I mean, Kathleen Sluker's work is a great, example of this, where they've identified that there are changes within, for instance, the macrophages within the muscles. So the type of macrophage expressed in the muscles in someone who has chronic pain is slightly different to someone who doesn't. And the ones with someone, when someone's in pain, express pro-inflammatory cytokines when they are stressed by normal metabolites from exercise. So ATP, hydrogen ions, etc. When they're normal physiological process will activate this type of macrophage that then is perhaps pro-nociceptive, and therefore most likely or more likely to, it doesn't always equate to pain, as we know, but more likely to be painful. So there will be a group of people where actually engaging back in some activity, some exercise, we would expect to be painful. And that feeds back into the cost benefit analysis, doesn't it? Because we're saying, actually, to bring this back into your life, we need to lean into it a bit. How much are we comfortable leaning in depends on that cost benefit analysis, and how long we will need to lead into it before we start to see a shift in macrophage subtype. I don't know, 6 weeks, 3 months. I suspect that'll be quite individual for each person. So it does seem as though that might change over a period of time. And then there's that sort of the other group, which is that you need to challenge more, to do something more demanding. If you want to progress a bit further, and the tendinopathy work is a quite nice example of this, is that perhaps you are just going to reach a plateau and go no further. So in fact, you have to incorporate challenge and demand, increase the intensity in order for you to realize some of the potential that's within reach.
Brilliant. We've had some fantastic interaction from the audience today. Thank you very much for your contributions. There is just one question. I think the others are sort of more statements, but there is a question from Maya. Tim, how often do you use the Twin Peaks model for graded activity to when to push into pain, as some patients' baselines can be different due to sensitivity of their CNS?
Yeah, thanks very much for the question. Yeah, I use it. I don't know how often, but I use it. I used to use it very regularly in my clinic, but as we know, I treat most people remotely now. So yeah, I suppose I use something adaptations like DIMS and SIMS and some of the dispositional causality work. I might like draw arrows and I have like things where I'm like intimating sort of ideas about circles and donuts and graphic equalizers, and I use lots of different imagery around that. So yeah, but I do sometimes use the Twin Peaks model still.
Cool. That's great. Thank you very much. Is there anything that you just want to summarize at the end there before we do the wrap up and share some really exciting things that we've got coming up?
I think that's a good start, isn't it? Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for all your contributions, everybody.
You know, flash in the pan of stuff.
Yeah.
We got it all day, couldn't we?
It was one of those sessions, Tim. I think we could have gone on and on, but anyway, that's not what these are about. These are about sort of bite-sized chunks. Hopefully everybody just managed to take a break and have a coffee. And just to wrap up finally, if anybody is interested in doing an Explain Pain course, then we have got summer school. Summer school is back. So this is our long form Explain Pain course where you get to spend 8 weeks with Tim. The lectures are in much smaller bite-sized chunks, so they are 2 hours each week, and there's tasks to do between sessions, and you get to there's a lot more mentoring, and it's a longer form way of learning Explain Pain, and you get more time to go away, practice, come back with your questions, that kind of thing. So that starts in, is it July, Tim? Yeah, July. So yeah, and the other thing about that form of course is that it's all recorded. So that's the only course where we actually record it, and then you can watch it back as many times as you like. So if anybody's interested in summer school, it starts towards the end of July. That's 8 weeks with Tim, and you can find the link to that on the NOI website, and you can get signed up. Tickets went on sale yesterday, so they're already going. So if you want a place on that course, I do suggest you book early, because last year it was immensely popular, and I think we sold out in the end, Tim, and that's why we ended up running it in winter again, didn't we? So please sign up if you're interested in doing the summer school. It's a great way sometimes to get caught up on things that you haven't got around to doing previously in the year. Right, guys, thanks so much. Absolutely brilliant session. Loved it. Thanks for joining live, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Bye.